All right, so the War of 1812 is over, and as you know, going into the war and during the war, we couldn't trade with other people, so we had to start making our own stuff. And that's why we are jumping to Module 13, the Industrial Revolution in America. I thought that those went together pretty well. Your assignment was to read Section 1 or Lesson 1 of Module 13 and do the first 2 pages of your Module 13 file. I'm going to go over the answers with you right now, and as I go through, whatever is highlighted will be on your test at the end of the module. Also, keep in mind that you will need to take a quiz when you are done filling this in and checking your answers. It is an open notes, open book quiz. It's an open-ended quiz. You are going to be writing a paragraph to answer a question. So you definitely want to make sure you have the right answers here, because you're allowed to use this in while you're taking your quiz. The quiz will be on Schoology in your quizzes and tests folder. It's the 13.1 quiz. So let's go over these answers. I'm just going to circle the answers as we go through. Number 1, at the beginning of the 1700s, most European and Americans were farmers. That would be the answer there. That's a big reason why people came to America in the first place, was for land so that they could farm. Because back in Europe, land was not available to everybody. You basically had to be the firstborn son of a noble family to inherit land. And that's a big reason why people came to America in the first place. Clothing generally was made by female family members. So basically you have little old grandma in the corner of the room making your clothing. Your mom, your sister, your aunts, that's one of their responsibilities. So that's how they make their clothes. This is all before the Industrial Revolution, of course. In Britain, the growth of cities, better roads, and fast population growth led to more demand for manufactured goods. So this is where we start to see the shift. But it's happening in Britain. It's not really happening here in America quite yet. That's going to come a little bit later. Our demand for manufactured goods will increase, but we're going to be getting them from Britain. During the Industrial Revolution, let's see, what's the answer? The use of machines in production grew rapidly. So what makes the Industrial Revolution possible is machines. These are things that do the work for you, or at least with the assistance of a person. It's going to make the work much faster, much easier. Also, what helps is that anybody can run a machine. I certainly do not know how to make clothing, but I think you could show me how to use a machine that makes clothing quite easily, quite quickly. I can train somebody to use a machine really fast, but in order to learn how to actually do something by hand takes a lot of skill and a lot of years of practice. So that's the difference. Anybody can run a machine, but not just anybody can make something by hand. Number 5, manufacturing grew slowly in the United States because manufacturers could not compete with inexpensive British goods. Like I said earlier, we were getting our stuff from Britain, and they industrialized before we did. So instead of trying to catch up to them, we would just buy our stuff from them. So manufacturing is going to grow slowly in the United States, but then bam, 1807, the embargo is passed, and then bam, 1812, we go to war with Britain, so we're not trading with them for a while, and we're going to have to figure it out, and that's exactly what we do. We industrialized at lightning speed. You were also asked to do the second page of this, which is a chart where you are organizing information to show cause and effect. I've highlighted the material that will be on your test at the end. You can press pause if you want to take time to highlight that stuff as well. So let's see here. Number 1, merchants built large textile mills filled with spinning machines. The way that they were able to do that is letter A. So you can actually just put the letters. So here, letter A goes here. You see what I'm saying? When Richard Arkwright invented the water frame which is a large spinning machine, it made it possible for merchants to build large textile mills filled with those spinning machines. So think about how people had to make clothing before this. Again, we'll go back to little old grandma in the corner of the room. She takes wool or cotton from a basket, basically, and she runs it through a spinning wheel. It stretches and spins the cotton or wool into thread. And then that thread has to be woven into some sort of cloth. And then the cloth has to be cut and sewn according to a pattern to create a garment of some kind, whether it's clothing or drapes or a tablecloth or a blanket, whatever. It is very labor intensive and it takes years to get good at. But when Richard Arkwright invents the water frame, which is a huge spinning machine, now you're able to spin many, many threads or many bobbins of thread at one time. It's not just one at a time. And that makes it possible to build these large textile mills. These are the places where textiles will be made. Textiles is referring to things like clothing or blankets or drapes, anything made of fabric. Number 2, Slater was able to teach Americans how to build machines in factories. That's actually going to be letter B. We're going to bring letter B down now, okay? Samuel Slater, a skilled mechanic, left Great Britain for the United States. So he actually smuggled secrets out of his country. It was against the law to share these secrets with other countries, but he did it because he knew that if he came to America, there was great opportunity here, and he was absolutely right. So we have him to thank for our quick industrialization. Number 3, we have a cause here. New England had many rivers and streams that could provide power for mills, and the effect of that is letter D. Most mills were built in the Northeast, particularly in New England. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but geographically, it seems that the rivers and streams in the north flow much more rapidly than the rivers and streams in the south. The southern rivers and streams seem to be more lazy and slower, but you need fast-moving water to catch the water wheel that spins. The water wheel is connected to all the levers and the gears inside the factory. So as long as you have moving water, you have moving machines. If the water dries up, you're going to have to close your factory until it rains again. If the water's not fast enough, the machines aren't going to work fast enough. So geography has a lot to do with why the North is going to industrialize before the South. Also in the South, they are able to rely on agriculture because their growing season is longer than ours and their soil is more fertile. So that's why they're going to have slavery in the South. That's why they don't industrialize in the South. And so here we really start to see the difference in the economies and how those develop. The decisions that are made in this time period are going to impact America for many generations and, quite frankly, lead to the Civil War. But we'll get to that someday. All right, let's go to the next one. Number 4, manufacturers began mass producing large numbers of identical products. That's because Eli Whitney developed interchangeable parts. And so the answer there is E. When Eli Whitney developed the idea of interchangeable parts, it makes mass production possible because now you can have parts that are able to fit many different products. Whereas before he invented this idea, everything had to be handmade, custom made from scratch. So guns, for example, that was the first thing that he used it on. Before he came up with this idea, you would have to go to a gunsmith and they would make you a gun from scratch, and every gun was different. There were no 2 guns that were exactly the same because they weren't being made by machines and they weren't being made with interchangeable parts. So let's say the trigger breaks on your gun, you're going to have to take your gun back to that gunsmith and he's going to have to fix it for you or make you a new gun. You can't just replace the trigger with another part. You can't order another part like we do today and replace it. So this is huge. Having interchangeable parts absolutely makes mass production possible, and mass production is what the Industrial Revolution is all about. making things in high volume very quickly. It's going to take a really long time to build a gun or any other product from scratch by an artisan who's been doing it for years and is very skilled. However, on the other hand, you can train an unskilled worker. You can train me to put a trigger on a gun, or put the stock on the gun, or put the sight on the gun, and I just do that same thing over and over and over again in a factory, and I get good at it. And it doesn't matter how many years I've been doing it. It doesn't matter if I have skills or not. So all of this works together to create an environment and an economy where we can create things and produce things much more quickly. And therefore cheaper too. Things are cheaper when they're mass produced. And finally, number 5, the embargo and later blockade during the War of 1812 kept British goods out of the United States. And the answer there is C. So let me go back up and read what that says. Because the competition was gone, U.S. manufacturers then had the chance to sell their goods, make profits, and build more factories. So that's really what got it all started in America, was the embargo and the blockade during the War of 1812. All right, so this is a really big time in the world, and especially in America. Industrialization and mass production of products had already begun in Britain, but now it's going to start happening in America because we weren't able to trade with people leading into and during the War of 1812. It's obviously going to change our economy and our lives forever, and that's what we're going to be learning about for the rest of the module. So at this point, you should have what you need to answer the quiz question that you're going to find in your quizzes and tests folder on Schoology. Like I said, it's open notes, it's open book, and that will be worth 6 points. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.